This week on the Hollywood in Toto podcast, we explain why Brett Cooper really nailed it when it comes to celebrity culture in 2025. And we explain who the new real stars are and why they're emerging above the A-list. And we talk to comedian Chrissie Mayr about free speech, about Trump, and why she's been attacked quite a bit by her fellow comics. And is it still happening today?
Welcome to the Hollywood in Toto podcast. Entertainment news and reviews without the woke Hollywood narrative. Free speech, free expression. Now that's entertainment. And here's your host, award-winning film critic, Christian Toto.
I hope you'll give the Hollywood in Toto podcast some love via social media, a share here, a subscribe there. After a while, it all adds up, and we do appreciate it. Well, she did it again. Brett Cooper cut through the pop culture noise and made some really good points. And not a surprise, she's been doing that for quite some time. Of course, she got her launch on the Daily Wire, and now she's broken free. She's a solo podcaster. I had the good fortune to speak to her on this show a couple of years ago when she was just starting out, and I thought, gosh, she's so young, she's so poised, she's so smart, she is going places, and of course, she went places, and now she's a star. But I wanted to focus in on what she said about celebrity culture in the most recent episode of her show. It's certainly listening to the whole show in toto, but the gist of it was we just don't worship and follow celebrities like we used to. And the turning point, the way she saw it, was that Imagine Sing-Along from the COVID days. Now, if you didn't see that, it was pretty cringeworthy. A bunch of celebrities, including Gal Gadot, got together and sang Imagine, the John Lennon song, from their mansions and trying to say, hey, we're all in this together.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try.
No hell below us.
Above us only sky.
Imagine all the people
Together. Of course, we weren't all in this together. We didn't have the money they had. We didn't have the homes they had. We didn't have the job security they had. It was tone deaf to the extreme. I believe Gal Gadot backpedaled after that. Good on her. I don't think she's a bad person. I just think it was a social media misstep. But what Brett Cooper said was this was the moment where he really kind of said, hey, we're not so keen on the culture and the pop culture renaissance anymore. I think that was the moment, as Brett Cooper describes it, when we just said, boy, we don't have to follow everything that the celebrities say, do we? This was pretty tone deaf. They don't live the lives that we live. And maybe they're so disconnected from our experiences that we just see them differently.
Don't you have some kind of a line that you keep open for emergencies or for celebrities?
And again, I don't think she's wrong. I think there are many, many reasons why we disassociate from celebrities and we don't worship them like we did in the past. I mean, it's politics, it's the culture. And, some of this is not the celebrity's fault. When they're pitching their products and they've got a new movie or TV show, they've got to go everywhere. They eat hot wings on YouTube. They've got to go on the late night circuit. They got to do all these things just to let us know that, hey, their new movie's out and cut through that noise, that pop culture haze, which I just mentioned.
Yeah, it was the worst one. And it's also the nastiest one.
Yeah.
It's not easy, and I do have a lot of sympathy for them in that regard, but we just don't see them the same way. It's different now. And like I said, she's right. But I wanted to focus on two specific celebrities who I think have risen above the noise and really are people to watch for in the coming months and maybe even years. One of them is Justine Bateman, of course, became a superstar of sorts with Family Ties, the great 80s sitcom. Now, she wasn't the breakout star of the show. That was Alex P. Keaton, a.k.a. Michael J. Fox. He became a major movie star. So, she wasn't on that level, but certainly she was in her living rooms every week. She was famous. She got some gigs from that, and she worked pretty regularly for the next 10, 20 years. And then she kind of faded away from the mainstream. And well, she did other things. She's written things. She's directed films. I don't want to just besmirch what she's been up to, but from a pop culture radar perspective, we weren't thinking about her all the time. But more recently, she rose up. She became a very powerful voice when it came to fighting back against AI in the culture and in Hollywood. And of course, more recently, she really broke through when she said, after the election results rolled in, I feel like I can breathe again. And I think she wasn't alone. And I think that really did connect with a lot of people who thought, Yeah, maybe free speech is going to have a comeback.
Back in the 60s, he was part of the free speech movement at Berkeley.
Comeback. So for all those reasons, she has really risen up as this new kind of celebrity, not in a hit movie per se, not the traditional route, but all of a sudden we're starting to pay attention to what Justine Bateman has to say. And I have a bit of a personal connection here because I wrote a story for the Daily Wire very recently that really toasted her accomplishments, what she's done in recent months, and how she's this beautifully sane voice in an insane world. And then she torched me on social media. Apparently, I didn't really quantify all her successes and all her career accomplishments exactly like she wanted. So she let me have it on Twitter. I felt very badly about it. I thought I basically wrote a mash note to her in her career, but people can disagree. And I think celebrities sometimes have a bit of a thin skin, but I still trumpet what she's doing. I still recognize that she's a valuable voice in the culture and in a sense, a new star. Not a typical star, not a traditional star, but a star nonetheless. And of course, another one, maybe he's following a more traditional path in a way, is Joe Rogan. I mean, we keep saying that Joe Rogan impacted the election when President Trump went on his show and Kamala Harris didn't go on his show, that was a breaking point of sorts. That may be overstating things for sure. I think the trajectory of the election is what it is, but it certainly was a moment. It certainly mattered. And then recently, Joe Rogan talked about why he talked to Trump and why he did get a chance to talk to Kamala Harris. And he explained how the media in their reportage got it wrong.
They never committed to doing it. Well, we went through, I've got a whole, we have all the receipts, by the way.
Of course.
I have a whole list of conversations that took place. They never said she was going to do it. So this whole idea that we f***ed her over and then we f***ed her over for Trump, incorrect.
And that's noteworthy for a couple of reasons. One, I tend to trust Joe Rogan's version of the story in part because he says he's got the receipts, as he called it, which probably means there are text messages and email messages that back up his version of events. And also, I just don't trust the media. I don't trust the media. The media today is corrupt, sadly, and I think there are just way too many examples to be proven otherwise.
So I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir.
Go ahead.
I also think the reason why I trust a Joe Rogan is because he doesn't seem to be selling me anything. He doesn't seem to be bought and paid for by any particular group or body. He just seems like an earnest, I think he's a little conspiracy minded at times for my taste, but just a voice of searching, a voice of honesty, a voice of reason, someone who isn't trying to pull the wool over eyes and just wants to have conversations and explore and be intellectually curious. And for all those reasons, I think both he and Justine Bateman, they're the new stars. They're the new people who influence us. And I don't even think we can use the term influencer in the traditional sense. They're not on social media or Instagram, filtering up and trying to push certain products on us. It's not like that. But they're emerging as authentic voices in a culture where we need them desperately. It's one of the many reasons why Joe Rogan has become a superstar on Spotify. He's not the funniest comedian. He's not the best interviewer, but he is open and raw and intellectually honest about what he does, and also admitting to his flaws and acknowledging that he's not an expert. And thank heavens for that. So that's where the celebrity class is in 2025 and probably beyond. It's not the typical voices. Listen, Brad Pitt's going to walk the red carpet. He's a handsome man. Gosh, he's 60, 61. He looks decades younger. God bless him. And there will always be interest in what he does, and he makes good movies. And I have no problem with any of the above. But when it comes to the culture, when it comes to maybe swaying elections or making us think more than we do normally, I just think that celebrities are really receding from the landscape. And it's these new stars, these new unconventional celebrities who are the ones we should be looking out for. And of course, it's a slippery slope. A Justine Bateman, a Joe Rogan can go astray. They can take the trust they've earned with us and squander it. And I would think a prime example of that right now is Tucker Carlson. It's a bigger story for a bigger day, but he broke free from Fox News unexpectedly. They fired him. And then he rose up on X as this new independent voice. And lately, have you heard him? Have you seen him? Again, too much information to go into here. This is not a strictly political show, but he has squandered all that goodwill and then some. It's a cautionary tale. And it's someone that maybe Justine Bateman and Joe Rogan should look at and say, hey, I know I'm rich and famous now. I know I'm the voice of a new generation, but I don't know if I want to go in that direction. So be warned. So So that's it. The stars of old are still with us. They'll be out there on Oscar night. They'll be looking beautiful and glamorous, and they'll have lots and lots of money. And I begrudge them none of the above. But when it comes to the new stars, the people swaying the culture, all I have to say is, go Mallory. Chrissie Mayr has bucket loads of courage. And if you don't believe me, consider this one little factoid. She made a comedy album called Live from January 6th. Enough said, right? Chrissie is a true original. She believes in free speech. She says the jokes that she wants to say on stage and on her podcast. And she doesn't get bullied. She just keeps plunging forward, saying, I'm a comedian. I'm a free speech purist. I've got some things to say. And yeah, I've been on Team Trump for quite some time, and I'm not backing down. Again, it's refreshing, even if you hate Trump, even if you don't agree with her political views. Chrissie Mayr is one to watch. She's also a lively presence on YouTube. You can check her out. Just go to YouTube and punch in at Chrissie Mayr. It's Mayr, and find out more about her at chrissiemayr.com. You can find out her tour dates and other information about what she's up to these days. Always a great follow on social media. And of course, I'm just proud as peaches to have her on the show. And by the way, she also was very kind. She spoke to me for my book, my one and only book, Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul, a couple of years ago. Gave me some of her thoughts on comedy, on free speech, and why some of her fellow comedians are not too kind to her. We'll get into that more, get an update on that situation in a minute. So enjoy my conversation with the great Chrissie Mayr. She's funny, she's fearsome, and she's a new mom. And all those things are worth celebrating. Well, Chrissie, thanks for coming to the show. To quote an ex-sitcom star, it feels like we can breathe again. The elections are over. There's a new president in town. You're such a creative soul. You're such a dynamo. You're someone who just doesn't follow the rules. And I say that all those things as a compliment. Do you feel like you can breathe again? Do you feel a difference in the creative air? What's the sort of sense you have right now in the culture?
It's so strange because remember when Biden won and there was this sentiment from the left of now the adults are back in charge, and the same thing, they were saying we can breathe a sigh of relief, the adults are back in charge. And then what followed was 4 years of an absolute poop show. I don't know how much I can curse on. I'm gonna try to be more wholesome. It was just, Biden will go down as probably the worst president of all time, and hopefully he will just be a sad 4 years of a blip in an amazing Trump era. It's so surreal. I just remember sitting on election night, like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe my eyes. I can't believe, like, we're winning. We're actually doing this. And even leading up into the inauguration, I was like, just God, keep him safe. Like, they're trying to kill him. They have tried every possible way to ruin this man and his family for, my gosh, since 2015, really.
Yeah,
almost 10 years.
One of the advantages that you've had over the years, in recent years, is that, when Biden's in the White House and the Democrats are in charge, more or less, you're the opposition. You get to say the jokes that Jimmy Kimmel and company just won't go near. Does it feel a little different now that the Republicans have, the House, the Senate, and the White House? Is there a change in your approach, or how do you attack a different way, or is it just full steam ahead? And
it'd be interesting to see, because I've heard other people who've worked in mainstream radio for years and years say, well, not like I am at all categorizing myself in conservative radio or like, I'm in like conservative circles. I guess as I get older, I am becoming more conservative. Like, I just had my kid baptized as a Catholic. I'm going to be converting to Catholicism. So I am probably, taking my relationship with God a bit more serious now these days. So, but I also have had the experience of like being a brainwashed liberal myself. And, I just feel like I have a wide range of experiences. But anyway, getting back to my point about the friend of mine that I was talking to who's worked in radio for decades, saying, when the Democrats are in charge is usually when like conservative radio would thrive, like the time of Rush Limbaugh. He did great during the Clinton years. But what's going to happen now that, right, the Republicans have basically everything, they're going to be in total power, and Trump is going to seemingly have nothing in his way. I don't think that's going to change entertainment and comedy, because we still have the old guard in charge of all things kind of like Hollywood and mainstream media. You're still going to have to go to your independent content creators, independent news outlets, and journalists because they've been the ones that I feel like have been more so trying to tell truth and less, because the little guys, like, we don't have big sort of donors, and some of us can't even keep like an ad an ad read. So you just think people that are more independent are kind of like more on the side of truth, because they don't have the pressure of like a huge conglomerate behind them with like big pharma paying for all the ads. So I think the tides are going to take longer to change on the entertainment front. Maybe it will embolden, like, say, like, I keep saying like the Daily Wire, because they've actually put forth some, they've been trying to make some movies, some comedic films in the last couple of years. I really hope that more will kind of come out, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to put up a lot of money. You need to have all the things working together. Trump, what did he put Mel Gibson in charge of fixing Hollywood, and a couple of other people? We'll see about that. A lot of us are ready to kind of just like close the door on Hollywood as a whole. I mean, I feel bad that some or most of it has burned down, but then you see people like Jimmy Kimmel crying every other month. Is it genuine? No, it seems to be the thing he knows to do to trend in the news every other month. And these people just are, until they are out of the limelight and just not working anymore, they're gonna still be up to the same old tricks, it seems. And the old school networks, the legacy media, I don't think is going to go anywhere, because they broadcast whether people watch or not.
Yeah. When you think about the last couple of years, especially with the election, that was dubbed the podcast election, and Trump was on some major shows like Joe Rogan. You're part of this landscape. Do you have plans for 2025 going in a different direction, embracing new ideas, or is it just sort of sticking as close to the truth as you can? What's the secret sauce for you going forward?
Ooh, well, Christian, honestly, to get back into my wedding dress. And what I'm going to do is not the regular way. I'm just going to turn it around and put the skirt on first and wear it like a Snuggie. And that's how I'll be able to say I can fit into my wedding dress again. No, I think, for me personally, I might, who knows, I might live stream or vlog about my conversion. I think just, getting older, becoming a mother for sure. I'm going to have more content on that. At first, when the baby was born, I was like, oh, I'm going to do a vlog every week and talk about, not like I thought I was going to become a momfluencer or like one of these mom YouTubers. I made it like 2 or 3 weeks, and then I was like, I don't know how people can do this. Like I can barely keep a clean shirt long enough to make a video. It's just like childbirth and kids are no joke. It's so humbling, and I know that my stand-up material is really going to reflect just these life changes too. And I think maybe I will try to find the funny in like more serious topics like that have happened close to my heart, like death, like death, dying, parents dying.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be, I don't think that Trump being in charge is going to like hamper anybody creatively. If anything, it's going to embolden the same old characters like the late night hosts to get back to their TDS will finally be relevant again, whereas the last 4 years it wasn't, and they were still clinging on to it like he was still in power.
Yeah. You were kind enough to speak to me for my book, Virtue Bombs. I talked about woke Hollywood, and there's been real genuine progress in recent months about the woke ideology kind of taking a back seat in the industry. We've seen apolitical films doing really well. Disney is literally backpedaling on some of their DEI propaganda. And you've been at the forefront of trying to speak your mind, fighting the power, getting censored by big tech. Are you sensing that there's people are more able to speak? Are you being able to say what you want to say without some of these guardrails? What's it been like for you in recent weeks?
I think so. And there's also this sense for um comedians, entertainers, like people in the industry in general, that maybe were not vocal about this issue 4 years ago when we needed them. Whitney Cummings. No, people give me crap for being critical of her, but it's like, hello, she's gigantic, she's so famous. We could have really used some more household names 3-4 years ago when the lockdowns were and everybody was getting pressured to take the jabs. We could have used some more bigger voices that would have had a huge impact, but we got here anyway. And I think those of us that stuck our necks out, not that I don't want to say like I'm sour about it or surly about it, because I think I was true to my own voice and to my own convictions, and I'm glad I didn't like lie about it. I'm glad I didn't go around like using a fake vax pass just so I could perform at all the big clubs, but on the sly be like, oh, I didn't get it, because I know I can sleep at night saying like I didn't like lie to myself. I didn't have to lie to any comedy club venues or my audience for that matter. And thank God we did get to where we're at. I mean, like, we would have had vaccine passports if people didn't stand up. We would have had like mandatory, who knows, rectal scan. No, like, we would have had vaccine passports, and it would have been just, where I live close to New York City. It would have. I was prepared to not go into another restaurant ever again. I was like, I guess I'm done going into restaurants. And that was a really kind of scary feeling.
Yeah.
For those of us that really drew that line, had that line in the sand. But now it's kind of like, it's almost, I don't know if The Wizard of Oz is the right movie, but it's kind of like the calm after the storm, and like all the little creatures can like look out. Oh, it's okay. And it's like, yeah, some of us creatures were out here in the storm, and we're weather beaten, and we're tired.
That's right.
But now it's very safe for people to come out and be like, oh, I love Trump, and I hate big tech, and the vaccine didn't work. It's like, how brave, how stunning and brave. It's great. It's great. People will come around and wake up when they can, which is great. It's just like, all right, well, next pandemic, you better be right out there in the front with okay, you better make up for it, I guess, next time. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm answering your question at this point.
No, it's fine. I mean, they don't get a pass next time, that's for sure. One of the things I've noticed in the last few months was Netflix had two pretty prominent roasts, and anything went, which is obviously exciting and fresh and different and almost like the 90s all over again. But then I saw you did a video about, is it Michelle Buteau, the comedian who attacked Dave Chappelle?
Oh, yes. She attacked Dave Chappelle recently, which was a bit shocking, because like anybody who follows Dave's knows that he had like a trans opener for quite some time that he was pretty close to. So I don't understand why comedians are still being so critical of him.
And he really spoke eloquently about that particular comic in The Closer, the one special that got him in such trouble. I mean, it was a beautiful, heartfelt tribute to a fellow comic, and he didn't seem to get much credit for that. But it felt like something you'd hear in 2022. Hearing it now, it just felt like, wait, doesn't she realize that the game has changed?
It is.
You can't just do this anymore.
It's a bit tone deaf. It kind of, to me, says like, oh, I think this person might still be living in a bit of a bubble, and maybe is not mixing it up with people who think differently than she does. So, will it hurt her career? Probably not. It's just to people that think differently than her. It's like, oh gosh, Gary, maybe you've been a bit just sort of sheltered.
Yeah. In the last couple of years, it feels like comedy is truly having a moment. I remember in the late 80s, there was another similar, every comedian got his own sitcom or her own sitcom. And now it just seems like, Nate Bargatze is huge. And I just saw Sebastian Maniscalco, and he was filling out arenas. It's just crazy. Is it sort of a cultural a bomb, something we need right now, given the chaos and the headlines? Why do you think comedy is having such a moment?
I think comedy is having such a moment. People have always needed comedy and needed entertainment. And I noticed that so much over the lockdowns and the pandemic. It's just like people needed a pressure release, and comedy, comedians and stand-up clubs are the last places where you can even hear people say a true thing. I mean, it didn't even have to be a funny statement. It could just be like, say something true that that you're not going to hear on the news, that you're not going to hear at work, because people are too afraid to talk about certain topics because they don't want to get fired. And a lot of people were just scared, and it felt like comedy clubs were the only place you could just like kind of be like, oh, okay, people can relax and be themselves and actually laugh at the things that they find funny, instead of like thinking like, oh God, am I gonna get written up in HR for laughing at this joke? So people have always needed comedy. I think it's just the cloud on like kind of like PC culture, and we have to pretend that we can't make fun of. People have always laughed. You can't control what you laugh at. Nobody, no matter how intelligent you are, how much education you've had, if you think you have the right politics, like you'll laugh at a joke you find funny, whether it's racist or not, whether it's homophobic, misogynistic. Like that's just, it is what it is. So I think people might be at a place where they can sort of stop. There's how people really act, and then there's kind of the commentary around it. I think the individual person has always found funny what they find funny now, but it's like we can stop pretending that everything has to be politically correct, and that we, can't make fun of certain groups because, it's like morally incorrect.
Yeah. We spoke a year or two ago, and I remember you said something that was just kind of shocking to me, that often the more blowback that you get is from fellow comedians who are attacking you, trying to cancel you. Has that improved at all, or is that situation still a little bit prickly?
I would say the people that kind of wrote me off a few years ago, like during like the really like people started to write me off with the last Trump administration, and then it was all kind of all different reasons: being an out Trump voter, being against the lockdowns, not getting vaxxed. And then now with like Trump again, I think the people that wrote me off for Trump are kind of like, like there's no getting them back now that Trump has won again. And I think people are still going to, like, I'm talking about the certain type of like moronic liberal comic, like just the one, I'm sorry, like the people that still are kind of living in a bubble. And you could say, oh, Chrissy, aren't you living in your own bubble to a sense? But I just feel like, because of how I've there's certain comics that just stay in LA and New York, and I've seen a lot of the country, and just like any comic who's doing well and performs at clubs, you get a feeling for how most of the people in this country actually feel. And everyone's kind of in the middle, really. It's kind of rare that you'll be on either extreme. So I would say like the people that have written me off are probably not going to be like, we're so sorry, Chrissy, we were wrong, please. But that's fine, because it's like, the longer you do anything, the more you find, your people and who appreciates you.
Do you find yourself trying to make sure you're not, you mentioned the bubble, and maybe we can all have our own delusions as well. Do you try to do things that maybe read opposing points of view, or talk to people who are on the other side of the political fence, to kind of make sure that you're not that bubble person? You're kind of
because they're wrong, Christian. No, no, of course you always have to be willing to like hear the other side out. And I know, because like I was on the other side politically for I probably most of my teens and 20s. So I just remember what I know. I kind of know how those people still feel, and what their hangups are, and what their kind of soapbox issues are. So I think it's just, being willing to, and I do this on my interviews or on a Simcast. If I have a guest who feels differently on a topic, you just have to hear the person out, and just try to keep it from getting to a place where everyone's kind of insulting each other, and just try to discuss ideas.
You're the kind of person who really does push the boundaries of free speech. So no apologies. Are there times where you get pushback even from your fans? Like maybe you go too far, or they kind of gently say, hey, I'm not sure that's working. Or are there moments like that in the work you do? Because I mean, when you work without a neck, sometimes maybe you sprain an ankle, I guess you could say.
Oh my gosh. No, I don't think I've heard feedback like anybody say, oh, you went, well, actually, okay. I told this is not that it's gonna haunt me because I still think it was funny, but I told a fried chicken joke on Newsmax I think last year that people really got upset about. There was a like a DEI hire at Chick-fil-A, and they were talking about making like the fried chicken business more inclusive, and I said something like, we sell fried chicken. How much more inclusive can we get? It was kind of like a black person joke. Big deal. Also, everybody loves fried chicken. I don't know why people really got up in arms about that joke. It was like such a stupid, like just last minute improvised line, and like people got really upset. I'm like, I didn't invent these stereotypes. They're fun to poke fun at.
Yeah.
Like everyone needs to just like calm down. But those people weren't my fans. That's how you know when something like goes viral. When you have a thing goes viral, like the first wave is like your fans. The second wave is like your haters. And then it's like the public kind of like at large. And so if you're lucky enough, you'll get hate from new people.
Is that on your to-do list for 2025? Hate from new people.
Yes, you're right, Christian. I want to insult the groups of people that I've been ignoring for the last few. The Indians, I guess, maybe Asians, Hispanics. You know, there's always a new group to upset. But the people who know me and like know my comedy and watch my content, they know that like you can play with like racial jokes. That doesn't mean you're racist. You can make fun. You can have fun with stereotypes. That doesn't mean you actually believe them. It's just you're poking fun at just basic things that people understand.
I mean, I think it's one of the main things that's been so frustrating with the woke movement is that they take away context and meaning and intent. And sometimes context and meaning and intent are everything and really do speak to what you're trying to say. And, you know, and just referencing a stereotype cannot exactly mean that you're trying to hurt someone or hate someone. It just could be sort of riffing on culture. It's, you know, it's out in the ether.
Another thing, like, I guess sort of like a growing pain of not only myself, but anybody who is in any kind of like public figure capacity is as your feelings change about certain subjects on things like, you just be prepared to get blowback. Well, this isn't how you were a couple years ago. And then you have to be able to explain, this is my journey, or here's what I've been through in life that has made me change my opinions on these couple of issues. So,
one last question. You know, you said you kind of were on the left in the past and now you're not, clearly. Any advice for those maybe with people in their lives who may be in that sort of similar bubble? I mean, it's sort of yelling at them and sharing facts and figures. It's not going to work. I mean, you really have to have a different approach. I think Carrie Smith does a great job at this with some of her online commentary, because she was on the left and now she's, you know, certainly more expansive, at least the way she thinks. What can you do with loved ones if someone's, you know, just trapped in a certain mindset? It doesn't even mean they need to be on the right, but just to kind of open things up and get the conversation flowing.
You have to be gentle. It doesn't matter like who knows, and I don't know if how many people on the left listen to this show, Christian. Hopefully some do, because you're great and I appreciate you, because for years you have been like putting me in your articles and like giving me a lot of props, which I very much appreciate. You're always uplifting voices like myself and like Tom McDonald and anybody who is trying to stand up for these issues. So I really appreciate it. But I would say, handle these folks with, be gentle, give them grace, because like at the end of the day, we're all just kind of like a sum of everything we've been exposed to. And there might be propaganda on both sides, but who knows? Like some groups are more heavily targeted for this propaganda than others. And it's kind of, everyone's got their own different algorithm. And be patient, listen, ask questions. Like really almost like if you have somebody that you want to walk through that you think, oh, this person might be a little bit brainwashed on this topic, it's like sit them down or like call them up and almost kind of be like a therapist to them. Like, why do you feel this way, without criticizing? Nobody likes to be told that they're wrong or they're stupid or that they're not informed. But if you care about this person, which you should, I am not for writing off people in your family, you know, relatives, dumping people over like a political or like a cultural opinion on something. I think that was very much encouraged over the last 4 years. So I think I hope the time for that has passed, because it's like your family is all you got at the end of the day. And unless someone's done something really messed up, like, you should be able to, get along with them and
Yeah, here.
talk things through, and just think like, no, this person has probably been exposed to a lot of garbage, and just do your best to kind of help them keep an open mind.
Yeah, I've been more intrigued by people like Jillian Michaels and Dr. Drew Pinsky, who are certainly no conservatives, but just seem to have seen the light and are asking really tough questions and really pushing conversations forward in a way that I think is really healthy. So the more of that, the better. I think Andrew Breitbart said more voices, not less. It just seems like a good kind of compass point to follow in the weeks to come.
Especially like, because depending, a lot of us might sound like we're saying the same thing or making the same points, but your take on a topic and my take on a topic might be just so different that it hits somebody, it hits their ear just a little bit differently, and you never know who you could reach, and whose mind you could help to open up.
That's a great point. Any other projects you want to mention before we let you go?
Ooh, waiting for the baby to stop breastfeeding any day now. No, I am worried because the teeth are coming, and it's gonna hurt. But with that stuff, I'll be getting more dates on the road in the next few months. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to my YouTube. Watch me every Sunday night. I have a show called Simpcast at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then I'm doing one-on-one interviews, as often as I can. So just subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay updated, and subscribe to my Twitter for hot takes and racial jokes.
There you go. That's perfect. And you can follow Chrissie at Chrissie Mayr. That's on YouTube. And also check out the podcast, check out everything that she's doing online. You're a digital innovator. You're kind of a rebel in the space. And that's why I've been so happy to talk to you over the years. And congrats on the baby, and things will get better. The sleep will come and the teeth you'll figure out a way, because people have been doing it forever, but it always sounds almost impossible when it's happening to you. I've been there with, I haven't been there with my boys. My wife took care of that hard work, but I was there by her side. So I saw some of the challenging times, but best of luck with the baby. Looking forward to you going on tour. And thank you again for speaking with us.
Thanks, Christian. Bye.
Your character actor of the week is Margot Martindale. Well, that's it for the show this week. Thank you again to Chrissie for joining the show. And we've got some more interesting voices coming up in future episodes, including a movie expert who's got a lot of dirt on the new film, Emilia Perez. You're going to be surprised and maybe even shocked at how inauthentic that movie is. Boy, the Oscars have a lot of explaining to do. And if it's going to get 13 nominations, I don't know if it's going to have any wins. We'll have to wait and see. Thank you for Andrew Klavan for having me on his great podcast recently. What a treat. He's just the best of the best. And of course, thank you to Radio America for having me as part of their great podcast lineup. We will see you next time. Be good, stay strong, and keep speaking out. It does matter.